There was an idea of a Kirby game that I've had for a very long time, and it's something that I've been thinking about over and over and over again, and I finally wanted to talk about it and exactly how it would work. There's one thing that we have seen in almost every single Kirby game, or at least every other Kirby game all the way up to today, and that is a boss rush of some sort. The arena just is something special to me in every Kirby game. It's really a test of strength, a test of your skills throughout the entire game, and then even the true arena is even a stronger test. This mode puts you in a gauntlet of all the bosses that you fought throughout your game, and even new versions and variants of those bosses, all in a row with very minimal health. But these are great, we know this, and they continue to appear in Kirby games and was even in the Forgotten Land. But something just still doesn't sit right with me. I think we need to go even further with this mode, and in fact, I would love to see the arena or the true arena actually become a full-fledged Kirby game. Now, I know exactly what the first thing people are going to bring up is Kirby Clash. We've had Kirby Clash on the DS and even on the Switch, so it just kind of makes sense that that would be the arena game that we've been wanting. Well, not necessarily. Kirby Clash is more of a team-based beat-em-up and even like a little bit of an RPG with different aspects of leveling up your characters and making them super powerful. It also doesn't really focus on dodging and quick movement. Instead, most of your characters feel like tanks with their heavy armor as they're just completely wailing on these bosses, but to me it just doesn't feel like what an arena Kirby video game could actually be like. Now, it is touching on a little bit of how the premise would work. You would still just go up against many different bosses, and lots of these bosses from the one on the Switch brings all types of bosses from past Kirby games, which is very interesting. You have Wispy Woods, you have Kracko, you can even have different variations of King Dedede coming back, and it's fun to see all these bosses again and fight them, but I want to see it in more of an arena game style. Let's just say we get a brand new antagonist, and they have the ability to warp time and matter, and we know a lot of villains throughout the Kirby lore is able to do that. We literally just got one with Fecto Elfilis, and let's say somehow we get another one that's able to kind of manipulate time or come from the future, or maybe even deep in the past. And what he does is throws all types of crazy bosses and mini bosses at Kirby from Kirby's past. That would be pretty cool. Maybe there's even levels in worlds based off of world maps still from the past. Maybe Kirby can go to different games in different areas from his past and fight different bosses and mini bosses within those areas. I guess what I'm saying is, what if the entire game was just fighting bosses? Every level's a new boss slash mini boss for Kirby to fight, and eventually at the end of the world will be a super strong boss, some type of version of a past boss that was very powerful back in Kirby's history. Yes, I know that means that there'll be no platforming, no levels to complete, or anything like we normally expect from Kirby, just strictly battles. Now, this doesn't have to be a full-fledged, full-price $60 Kirby game. This could be something that pops up on the eShop that we can purchase for like 25 bucks. We've definitely seen that with some Kirby titles before. Literally look at Kirby Clash and like Kirby Battle Royale. This could easily be slapped on the eShop for a small price. I think another fun part would just be the massive amount of copy abilities you could have. Maybe you could have copy abilities from each game that were like really unique. For instance, Poison and Doctor will come back from Robobot. You could have Whip come back from Return to Dreamland. You could even have the Bell ability from Triple Deluxe, or even Staff from Star Allies. There's so much potential here, and fighting all these bosses with these different items would be really cool. And what if they even had a completion thing where you had to beat all of these bosses with every single type of copy ability? Yes, I know that sounds insane, but that would just be a lot of fun. They could also have multiple different ways to fight against these bosses. Maybe you want to go in fighting as Meta Knight or King Dedede, or maybe even Bandana D, or maybe you can go in fighting as a Helper. Once again, like Kirby Superstar, you could fight Helper to Hero in Superstar Ultra, which actually meant that you got to pick one of the average enemies, the average Joes, to go up against these bosses as, and that was a lot of fun. That was really unique and something that really was cool that never really came back again. I also really love the idea of an actual arena Coliseum, just like they originally planned in Superstar, and they brought it back once again in the Forgotten Land. I would love to see lots of these battles take place with a giant crowd watching of maybe different characters throughout the Kirby franchise. Maybe you could have the People of the Sky from Triple Deluxe, or even the Haltman Workers from Planet Robobot, or even the Halcondrons from Return to Dreamland. There's lots of options here, and that would be really cool to just see a giant crowd, but I think a Coliseum makes sense. At least for maybe the final boss of each area, you end up in some type of Coliseum. That would be really cool. I just love the aesthetic, I love the feel, and it really does feel like a battle in the arena. Of course, this wouldn't be an arena video game if it didn't have a full-fledged arena mode. Yes, what if there was actually a side mode of the OG arena which allowed you to fight every single boss in the game in a row in the arena format. And I mean every single boss, which would probably pit Kirby against almost every boss in the franchise. That would be nuts. Come on, they would have to do something like that. This has kind of always been my ultimate dream, and I still hope one day that maybe I could replicate this myself by just putting all the games together and just combining all the arenas myself and just keeping track of the health that way or something. I don't know, but man, I would love this. Yes, it would take a while. It probably would take upwards to 2 to 3 hours to complete, but it would just be one massive mode that once you beat it, you just felt so satisfied. There'd also be little missions for taking down the bosses, like maybe some stages have different types of objectives that you have to complete, just like the Waddle Dee objectives from Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Some of them were like to defeat the boss without taking any damage, or beat the boss with a specific copy ability, or with no copy ability at all. I really like stuff like that. It keeps you going back and replaying, and that's a great way to replay some of these bosses within this game, to revisit stages and do things in order to complete these challenges. I think it would work great for a game like this solely based on boss battles, and it's just even more evidence as to why I need HAL Labs to do this. Perhaps one of the biggest questions is one that I'm actually excited that I can even ask this now with Kirby games, is it going to be in 3D or 2D? Now, granted, I love 3D Kirby. I think it's phenomenal, and I want to see so much more from a 3D Kirby game, but I still think even just having a 2D arena would be perfectly fine. I don't think they necessarily needed to be 3D in order to make this work. They could just have all these bosses once again in their 2D formats. I feel like that would probably work best as well, since a lot of people just got a 3D Kirby game. It at least gives them another 2D Kirby game to play as they wait for the next 3D one. It would just make a lot of sense, and that way they don't have to actually do a lot of work with some of these bosses. Some of them could just be straight up copy and paste, or maybe not even much change at all, since we're just kind of going back and fighting bosses that we've already fought before. But then that would of course give issues, because we wouldn't be able to fight any bosses from Forgotten Lands since all those were in 3D. So why not also have the option to maybe make them in 3D? That could work as well. I mean, I could see lots of these bosses being so much more fleshed out and so much fun in a 3D space. Imagine if this whole arena game was based on bosses that we've already fought, but we get to fight them in a 3D environment, which gives them new power-ups, new attacks, and just new abilities that makes them act and look a lot different from their 2D counterparts. They could seriously just use the same engine from Forgotten Land and remake some of these classic bosses, like for instance having Krakow in 3D now. I would absolutely love that. But like always, I'll leave it up to you guys. What do you think Nintendo and HAL Labs should do next with the next Kirby game? Do you think a literal battle arena game would work, where it's just nothing but arena boss fights the entire game? Would you want to see it in 2D or 3D? Let me know your opinion down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's video, stop what you're doing. Leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Kirby and all things Nintendo, and like always, I will see you all on the next one. See you guys.